Hey, happy Saturday afternoon. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580. 540-0580 is the talk line number. Those of you who haven't listened before, I'm an attorney here in the mid-state, practice law. I'll answer your questions. I know there's somebody chuckling when I said I practice law. Probably another attorney going, yeah, so he thinks. 540-0580. What we do here, you call in if you have a legal question, a legal concern, you want to sound off about what the Supreme Court's up to, you want to chit-chat a little bit. We'll answer your questions here on the air. The other thing we do, we have weekendappointment.com. That's a website where you can post your question and we answer them on the air. You can also sign up for a free will there. So make sure, if you haven't already got your free will or free will review. The other thing I'm strongly encouraging people to do, if you don't have an advanced life care directive, then you're going to leave it up to the death panels. So make sure you have an advanced life care directive. We call that a living will, medical power of attorney. We do those as well. As part of the free will kit, I offer a discount on that and durable powers of attorney, and a lot of people have taken advantage of that as well. So make sure you go to weekendappointment.com, register there to get your free will, and I'll be happy to help you. Remember, 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. Nick, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Yes. I got kicked out of my apartment a couple years ago, and I was put in a hospital, and they threw all my stuff out, and they took my car also. Within a month, and I wasn't able to get it back.
Okay.
Do I have any legal recourse? Or
It's been a few years, you say?
Right.
Well, the passage of time, you might still have a breach of contract type of argument, which has a 4-year statute of limitations. Some of your other claims for what we call conversion might have a 2-year statute of limitations. So I'd encourage you to get in with a lawyer. You might have a claim. A landlord can't just sell your property or take your property, but if they've evicted you and you haven't come and claimed your property after a certain period of time, they might be reasonable. Now, you say you're in the hospital.
Right. I was evicted, and a month later they cleaned out my apartment.
Yeah.
And
Did they know where you were, the landlord?
No.
Well, that's part of the problem. Got to get word to the landlord somehow. Now, were you incapacitated and
Yes.
unable to get in touch with anybody?
Right.
Yeah. I would strongly encourage you to sit down with a lawyer and go over it, but it sounds like if it's been more than 2 years, you're going to have some statute of limitations problems. And if it's been more than 4 years, you probably are completely out.
Okay.
All right, Nick, thanks.
Thank you.
540-0580. Sally, you're on WHP.
Hello?
Yes, Sally.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
Fine, I'm good. The reason I called is this is something that has been bothering me for quite some time. I own a small business locally in Harrisburg. It's a video production company.
Okay.
About 2 months ago, I edited a documentary type video for 3 students from Drexel University. And it was on legal immigration. And it was about all these jobs that in the medical field and health insurance company that are being taken by people on H-1 visas. And I don't know how much, I don't remember without looking at it, the number of visas that have increased over the past 10 years. But it has saturated our job market. And they had footage of Newark, New Jersey, and Jersey City, and those pictures on the video, the film, it looks like Bombay now. I haven't been there for a while, but the last time I was there was not that many legal aliens, and they're taking the really good jobs. According to this documentary, they're coming in, and the companies paid $3,000 for their H-1 visa and put them on high-paying jobs as programmers and that, and pay them minimum wage.
Now, and I don't know the answer to that, but obviously there are caps on legal immigration, number of people that can come in. I think it's 70,000 a year on that type of visa. But I know that Bill Gates and some other of the large tech companies have argued that Congress needs to expand it. So I wouldn't know what the veracity of that documentary you put together was or wasn't in terms of whether these people are really being paid such a low wage or not.
These 3 fellas, one was still in school, the other 2 were graduates, and they're SAS programmers. They do clinical trials and clinical research, and they have their doctorate. and they cannot find jobs. And every place they go for a job, and people will tell them we have a vacancy, the vacancy's taken them by someone on an H-1 visa. Mm-hmm. They bring them in, and according to them, normally 10 years ago, a South programmer on clinical trials made $100,000 to $150,000 a year. And if they can bring somebody in from India and pay them $20 an hour and just pay $3,000 for their H-1 visa, because in India the minimum, the average
right. Obviously, that's a high wage.
A day.
Well, Sally, I don't know what to tell you.
High for them, but they said it increased like 5 times from what it used to be in the last 10 years.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that there's been some complaints that there's not enough of these visas available. Obviously, that's coming from large tech corporations. So,
yeah, because if they can get people for $20 an hour, why not?
What I'm going to defer you to is and I don't know the answer, but if it's legal immigration, then it's always a political solution. It has to be Congress and the president who change that. Mm-hmm. It's not up for the courts to do, because if it's legal immigration, it's different than illegal immigration. Although you got to give those people credit. At least they're coming in legally, right?
Right.
All right, Sally, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
540-0580. Hank, you're on WHP 580. Hank.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted your take on this illegal immigration. Basically, the law that apparently was just signed in Arizona by the governor. And I guess it's a comment and a question. What don't people understand about the word illegal? I mean, I understand there's a problem profiling or whatever, but I mean, if for whatever reason the police stop people, have a legitimate reason for stopping and find that they're in this country illegally, right. Why in the world would somebody say, we're going to take this to the Supreme Court?
Well, Hank, let me tell you what's really going on. When I say what's really going on, it's not this simple. I mean, we use the word illegal immigrant, right? But something's only illegal if the government actually enforces it. So I'll give you an example. In a lot of states, it's illegal to commit sodomy. We don't arrest anybody in America for it anymore. The Supreme Court declared at least Texas is unconstitutional a while back. And for years, it might have been enforced against homosexuals, but never against heterosexual couples, okay? So it's a law. It's illegal, right? So why do people do it? Well, because it's not enforced, it's not really illegal anymore. So let me give you the next one. Is it illegal to drive 61 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone? Absolutely. When's the last time you saw somebody get pulled over, for 61 in a 55? So we all know we can go a little faster. It's illegal, but we all do it.
But they can do it.
So my point is this, okay? And this is my point.
Okay.
Why do you think there's 20 million illegal immigrants in America? You think that the powers that be don't want them here? In other words, corporate America has for many, many, many years employed millions of illegal immigrants, right?
Absolutely.
And in order to write them off on their taxes, they got to put them on payroll. And what does government get? They get all the payroll tax, all the FICA tax. That's all FICA tax that's not going to get paid back to anybody anytime soon, ever. And so figure whatever the FICA tax rate is, that's Social Security. Figure the income tax rate. Now, people pay their taxes, right? Illegal immigrants, the IRS went nuts when some Colorado attorney general or local prosecutor raided some lady who did a bunch of illegals' tax returns. And the federal government got involved and said, whoa, you can't do it. You can't touch those. You can't raid this person's place, even if you know she's doing illegal tax returns and aiding and abetting in identity theft, because you're going to mess up our tax strategy here. So remember something. Just because something's, quote, illegal, it's only illegal if we enforce it, right? And so now when the economy's down and things are as they are, there's some push to maybe change how we view that, but the camel's already in the tent. So I just want to make sure you understand it's one thing to say that something's illegal. It's another if there's no enforcement mechanism. It reminds me of the Game Commission. They say, well, we're going to get there. We're going to get the law passed so you don't have to display your hunting license on your back. But until that happens, you got to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, come on now, we all know police can give you what's called a warning, right? So they could simply announce, the Game Commission could simply say, listen, what we've done is we've instructed all of our agents to just calm down and relax, and if a hunter doesn't have it on their back, to just remind you that it's still the law and you should be doing it.
Yeah, look the other way.
And so as long as somebody looks the other way, is it really illegal? I got to go to break here, Hank, but that's the real issue.
One quick thing. I don't think they need to pass a state law. It's already illegal, and they can enforce it. In this country, you're not supposed to walk across the border and say you're a citizen when you're not.
Right, absolutely. The flip side is that's going to mess up a lot of big business and a lot of tax revenue.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll see you after the break.
Okay, bye.
540-0580. Hey, welcome back. What do we want to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Have a legal question, you call in, I'm going to answer it. I'm Carl Rominger. I'm an attorney at practices here in the Mid-State. 540-0580. Rick, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. You know, it's embarrassing as a Republican and a conservative that, with all the opportunity year after year to, enact realistic immigration reform, do something about the porous border. Now, this late in the day, after all these millions of people are here, now after the barn door has closed and the horses are, it's crazy. That's their answer to fixing this problem.
Yeah, well, and I mean,
it's embarrassing.
What can I tell you? I mean, I don't make the law. I can only, write my legislation like everybody else.
And it's also embarrassing that there's so many good jobs at PennDOT and Highmark and places like this in the Harrisburg area that are taken by people that have the opportunity. I mean, I love them. They have the opportunity and the education. They come in and they work hard. They're welcomed by a whole community. They come in, they're helped with apartments and the jobs at PennDOT. And, great. They did it the right way, legally and all that. The jobs are there, but it's pretty embarrassing for our educational system that, they can't be filled by people that got their education right here in America.
Well, and I'm going to tell you something. I don't know what's going on here in America because I can't find a kid to shovel my walk. I can't find a kid to mow my lawn. I can't find a teenager in all of Carlisle who wants to work.
For less than $25 an hour.
That's right, and he's entitled to it. Just ask him. So I don't know what's going on, my friend. I mean, I don't know. You got to pry the little Nintendos or Wiis or whatever they are out of their hands. I see Shane over here working. He's a young guy, and he's working hard. So but he's a rarity. I don't know where they found him.
It's the same way with health care. We have so many opportunities to fix things like tort reform and shopping for insurance across state lines. And, the Republicans did nothing. Conservatives did nothing. And now,
But Rick, it's like the Savage clip that they played. Savage is right. When the government controls your health care and your income and every other aspect of your life, how do you revolt against them? I got to let you go because I got to answer some legal questions here. But if I fill in for Durgan again, hit me up.
Okay, will do.
All right, brother. 540-0580. Wade, you're on WHP 580.
Carl.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Quick question for you.
Yes.
I live in Steelton. I rent a small house from my landlord. Several years ago, the borough enacted a policy for all rental properties where they come and they inspect your house inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This does not seem to be appropriate to me. I sit here and I look at this, and these people come in your house, they check, all right, your smoke detectors and the condition of the inside of the house. Can they do this, Carl?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is there's always been a classic fight over these about selectively picking landlords. I think I saw one that was struck down one time where they tried to say that out-of-town landlords were subject to inspection, but in-town landlords weren't. But the long and short of it is the theory goes like this. To inspect my house, as it's my house, it's my abode, it's where I live, I have a certain level of protection in it.
Privacy.
When I choose to rent it out commercially and make filthy lucre, right? Because it's filthy when you make money in America these days.
Oh, yeah, right.
Then I subjected myself to a new regime because we've got to protect those tenants against these slummy, evil landlords whose only job is to make filthy lucre. Just as it's the government's job to now protect us against bankers and insurance companies and everything else that makes a modern economy run. So, long answer short, I believe they can do that, but they have to evenly-handedly enforce it across all the landlords. And I think there's some minimal protocols to what they have to do. But off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what the outer boundary is. I just know of one case where they tried to make some landlords subject and some not. That was a loser. But my understanding is that they can subject commercial properties, including residential properties that are rented out, to a different regime than
Where does this end, Carl? I mean, how long is it going to be before they can come into your privately owned home?
Well, and this goes back to where, and if you hear me on Durgan quite a bit, I always argue, you got to keep the government down, you got to keep the government out. And everybody goes, well, but this is important, it could save a life. Yeah, okay, I'll save a life today, and then next week it'll allow the government to say, well, we already do it in 87% of the dwellings.
Right.
Oh, yeah, by the way, now that we control Fannie and Freddie and all the mortgages in the world, and we're now going to say that really you can't get home mortgages anymore. We're not going to allow that, or we're going to change the system around. You're all renters. Now you're all subject to the new standard.
Well, what scares me here most, Carl, is that this is my home. All right? I have some reasonable, the way I understand it, at least America, is that I have some right to privacy. No one is supposed, not even the landlord is allowed to enter.
Right.
From what I understand.
Well, landlord can enter on a reasonable occasion. Here's the problem, though. Because we have to, now I'll go the other direction. Let's say it's the mall, right?
Right.
Is it okay that once a year we require that the mall sprinklers be tested and
that's public?
But that's where we draw the line. Where do we draw the line? So how about a residential building that has, I don't know, 1,500 apartments in it or 1,000 units in some skyscraper? Should we allow them to be inspected once a year to make sure that there's going to be water up there on the 20th floor?
To me, it seems reasonable that an apartment should be inspected between tenants. All right, it should be the landlord's responsibility to notify these agencies. All right, when the apartment is becoming empty and the landlord wants to re-rent it to someone else, that it go through an inspection.
I think that's an interesting compromise of the right of privacy versus.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Flip side is I don't know where you draw the line. I just want to tell you that, yes, I agree with you that it's problematic that we lose those rights. On the other hand, you can always take the argument in the other direction. So that's why our forefathers called it unreasonable searches and seizures, where to draw the line. The courts have said we've got to balance the harm to be prevented against and the public interest versus the personal right of privacy.
Right.
And, of course, because we're balancing those two, as you know, anytime you decide that the personal right of privacy is lesser, then the balance moves further towards more intrusion. And that's why we have to strictly remind our government that the right of privacy is very strong.
Well, that's why I want to fight this, because if we just lay down for this stuff, where does it end?
And here's the problem. The problem is then who pays for that fight? You. And you got to decide how much of that lucre you want to throw.
There are some fights that are worth fighting.
I understand that. And I also tell you, though, when you're fighting City Hall, they've got an endless budget, and when we're on our 470th hour of brief writing,
right?
And it's a $47,000 bill.
Right, I understand.
The government's got it. You and I don't.
Right. Well,
Well, maybe you do. Hey, if you do, call me.
I wish I did.
All right, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to take a few more questions here.
All right, Carl. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
540-0580. Really, anybody out there with $50,000 I want to spend on a lawyer, I'll give you my office number. It's on the website, wherever you want. Am I pandering now? I'm sorry. Jim, you're on WHP 580. Hey, Jim.
Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you. I'm a small contractor. Quick question. If I did a job, and then after the job's completed, contract was signed before, and the 3-day rescission and everything. After signed, she put off so that she didn't have a check. And I went back and talked to her. Said, well, I don't own the house. she says, then later on she said something about her son has the power of attorney or her son owns the house. So where do I go from there?
Well, you did the work for her, right?
Yes. Yeah, she signed the contract that she owned the house,
Well, two things. Number one is if she didn't own the house and you did the work, but you thought she was authorized, I don't know. You might be able to file a mechanics lien
Okay.
against the house,
Yeah.
which would protect you there. But do it before they transfer it, because any contractors or folks listening out there, when you do a new build, the mechanics lien can be placed on the house even after it's sold. When you do a repair job or remodel to a not new home, once title's passed, you can't put a mechanics lien on the property anymore. So that's just a little.
I guess, I haven't checked. I guess there's a way of checking who actually owns the house now.
Yeah, and actually, and I hate to tell you this, but even before you start work, there's a way to check it too, which is part of the problem. Is she's gonna say, well, you could have figured that out. You could have just gone to the courthouse and looked up who owns that property.
Yeah. Another expense we need.
Well, exactly. But you could at least sue her.
Yeah.
You could at least sue her, but you want to get to the property because you want to be able to attach the value.
All right.
All right, my friend. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.
540-0580. I got a couple callers I'll take after the break. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. I was just looking up to see, in case anybody hasn't heard, RJ has a book out, something about it isn't easy being fat, but that's your problem, I think it's called. You can buy that online. You can get it at Barnes & Noble and all those good places. I'm sure you can get it through WHP, but I'm meaning to read that, so I was going to buy me a copy. So I don't see one laying around here. I was looking. I thought maybe I could find a free one and steal it, but I think I'm going to buy one. Just see. I'm not fat, though. I just want to make sure that nobody gets confused. John, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello?
Yes, John.
Yes. I've worked at a job for full-time for 40 hours a week for 8 years now, and the company is now reducing my hours permanently to 30 hours a week. Can the company drop my full-time benefits, and how long must I wait? How long would I have to work at 30 hours before they can reduce it to part-time benefits?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that you may be entitled to partial unemployment. As for benefits, I'm not sure, but I don't think an employer has to offer benefits, do they? There's no entitlement to health care. Well, wait, there is now. There's a mandate coming. But
I'm more talking about like vacations and stuff like that, whereas if you're getting a certain amount of vacations at full-time, and then, in other words, if you've done that and then all of a sudden they drop it down to part-time, can they, like a week later, just say, now you're getting, we're going to give you only, so many days vacation?
Are they – well, the long answer is that would still amount to lower compensation. So I know you could apply for at least unemployment compensation. Do you have a manual or policy manual for the job?
Yeah.
What's it say?
It just says that you can work at they'll give you the hours that are available is what they'll give you. But it's always been 40 hours for like years and years and years. Now they've come up with a policy to drop everybody down.
And are they saying that they're going to cut vacations and things like that?
Well, they haven't said that yet, but since they're dropping everybody down below what is the hourly...
The 32 or whatever.
Yeah, the cutoff for full and part-time, now that they're dropping everybody down, or a lot of people down to that, I'm just wondering how long it will be before they can,
Do me a favor. Go to weekendappointment.com. Post that as a question on there, and I'll do a little research on what the law says. And I'll post an answer for you.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thanks, Carl.
Make sure you post it, though.
Okay.
Sometimes people tell me they're going to, and then they don't. And you ain't going to get an answer if you don't post it, because if you post it, I'll look at it and go, okay, this is the question I got to do a little research on.
Right.
All right, my friend.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know what the answer on that is. I always thought the employer doesn't have to provide those things, and I think that would count towards the decrease in benefit. But I don't know. We'll figure it out, folks. Make sure if you have a question, put it on weekendappointment.com. We'll get it answered. We can't do it here on the air. And believe it or not, lawyers don't always know the answer off the top of their head. We just have to know where to find it. That's kind of the joke what law school is all about. Gary, you're on WHP 580.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, Carl. I was wondering, as a landlord, is it legal to do a background check on prospective tenants? And if it is, can you give any hints on how to go about it on the internet or whatever?
It is. The easiest way to do a background check, quite frankly, is to go find one of the local credit reporting agencies and simply run their credit. The long and short of it is, number one, I hate to say this, right, because you say feel bad for people that have had some bad breaks, but if they give you a history of where they've stayed, you should check. Call the previous landlord or call the previous,
Right, but that's for credit type purposes. What about for, for the safety of the other tenants, whether this person has a criminal record?
And that's interesting because here's the next question. I don't know if you have a duty to do that as a landlord.
Right, I don't think you do.
But you ready? Now wait, because here's what happens. So when you undertake a duty, even if you didn't have it initially, you might get yourself pinched someday. So here's what happens. One of your tenants attacks one of your other tenants, and that tenant goes, but I heard this landlord did background checks, and he must have not done a good enough one, so he did it negligently. Therefore, I should be able to sue him.
Right.
So you can also undertake duties that you might not want to create. So my feeling would be I'd worry most about the credit. Maybe check the Megan's list on the internet.
Okay.
And the other place to look,
how do you check the Megan's list on the internet?
If you just go to Megan's Law,
Law
PA, you'll find the state police website, and you can look people up by a name in there, zip code, address, things like that.
Right. But you don't want somebody in this, like you don't want a tenant that, was convicted of drug offenses and things like that.
And that's why, and in all fairness, the other place you can go, I have on weekendappointment.com a link to the PA web dockets where you can look up people's docket entries to see what they have been charged with in the past.
What is that website?
It's weekendappointment.com. That's my website. I have a link on there. You'll find it.
Weekendappointment.com, and it's a link to the Pennsylvania...
To the web dockets where you can look up people's criminal histories online.
Oh, okay.
Now, there are limits on what purposes you can use that for, and they're not guaranteed to be accurate. So you also got to be careful. But what that would do is give you maybe some pause to then do a further background. Usually, as a lawyer, what we would recommend is you hire a private investigator who's skilled and has access to the appropriate database.
Pretty expensive though, just for getting a tenant in.
And that's what I mean. I'm not sure I would want to spend a lot of money. I think a good credit history and a history of steadily living someplace is probably a pretty good sign the guy hasn't been to jail too many times.
Does that web docket just include the county that you're in, or can you search it for other counties?
You can search the whole state.
Oh, you can search the whole state. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right, my friend.
Your help.
And like I say, there's some limitations on the use of that, and that's another thing we got to get into. I would like to do that one of these days is do a little piece on the history of employment screening and the criminal law in Pennsylvania and what you're technically supposed to do. The other thing you could do is you could require these tenants, by the way, to fill out, and it's only good for Pennsylvania, but a state police request to get their criminal history, and you could basically put it in the lease that, I'm going to give you possession, but it's contingent upon your criminal background coming back as represented.
Right. Well, I thought this information would be important to not only just landlords, but also people that are looking for babysitters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It would be important for them to be able to do some type of a background check, maybe on a prospective babysitter.
Yeah, and of course the other thing is there are services out there that do that. I'd encourage you to run some searches in Google if you want to see. Some are, but you get what you pay for, and so the cheaper it is, the less comprehensive it generally is.
Right.
All right, my friend.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
540-0580, and you do have to be careful what you use criminal backgrounds for, so I always encourage you to go with a professional. Matt, you're on WHP 580. Hi, Matt.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, Carl. I have a bankruptcy and IRS question.
Okay. Sounds like a CPA question, but go ahead. Shoot, and I'll tell you what.
Well, it's a legal question as far as what the IRS... My wife's ex-husband, they filed a joint return several years ago that underreported their income. Subsequently, when they got divorced, they both declared bankruptcy. In his bankruptcy, now I'm aware that they can't discharge tax debt through a bankruptcy, but the bankruptcy court, the IRS signed off that they would collect the remaining tax due.
Right.
This year, 2009 taxes, when my wife filed hers separately, it's just they took her refund.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it seems to me like they double dipped.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer on that. I do know that as an innocent and injured spouse, if she didn't know that he was underreporting income, there is a procedure that she can apply to try to abate that.
Right, but there's nothing that I'm assuming the IRS can basically do whatever they want, and you have to go back and try and get the money back from them. But it seems to me like if a creditor signs off on a bankruptcy,
right,
to accept a certain amount, they can't go after.
Well, vis-a-vis him, right, but not her. She wasn't part of the bankruptcy.
Not that bankruptcy. She declared bankruptcy separately.
Right. And so she would have to have listed the IRS as a creditor in that one, and the bankruptcy court would have handled it there. So I do know that whenever you have a husband and wife and one goes bankrupt, any creditor doesn't have to. If they make an agreement as to how much will be owed by that person, they can still go back to the other person for the original debt.
Right, and that's why she declared bankruptcy herself. But as far as the IRS is concerned, if someone signs off to collect the full amount that's due,
right,
they can't. Can they go back after the other person to get more? I guess is.
Where they end up with more than they should have. That doesn't sound right on its face.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I just didn't know if you had
usually I would that sounds like a CPA question because the CPA will know what the tax law is in that area.
Okay. All righty.
All right.
Thank you.
I always refer the tax questions to CPAs. Lawyers are not qualified as a general rule, and in fact, a lot of times we have to make sure we point out to clients that to the extent that they may think our advice is tax advice, they really shouldn't follow it, and nor are we really trying to give them tax advice. So we always make sure that disclaimer's out there. That's what CPAs are for. Let's see here. We'll take one more caller before break, and I got some phone lines open, so call if you want, 540-0580. Dan, you're on WHP 580.
Hello, this is Dan?
Hey, Dan.
Hey, how you doing?
Good,
Carl?
man. Good. What's going on?
I got a question for you. Another bankruptcy question. My wife filed Chapter 13 about 2 years ago. I think it's been going pretty well. We pay Chase for our mortgage, and they will not allow us to pay two payments in the given month. They have to have that full amount up front. They're claiming that that's a federal law. Do you know anything about that?
That I do not know. Not know.
I can't imagine given relief like that because we have their accelerator.
Right.
We've had it for the past number of mortgages that we've had, and they say federal law says that we can't make multiple payments. It's got to be the one.
And the answer is I don't know the answer to that. Doesn't sound right to me, but I could be. I don't know. The other thing I say is a lot of times when banks tell you something's the law, that's code for it's our policy.
It's our policy, yeah.
And I recall a few times over the years I've been in a bank and they're trying to tell me that something, like I remember taking a check into a bank that I wanted cash, and it was drawn on the bank that I was in, and they're trying to explain to me I have to have an account there in order to cash this check. And I'm like, well, that's strange. It's a bearer instrument. And they're like, oh, no, it's the law. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, really.
Really?
Well, here's another one for you. Like I said, she Chapter 13 on reorg. I defaulted on a Chase credit card, and they have that attached in some form or fashion on her bankruptcy. And I don't know who I need to talk to about that.
I think whoever did her bankruptcy, that attorney would probably be the appropriate one because you have to file a motion to have that fixed.
File a motion, okay. All right, that sounds good. That's what I needed to know, man.
All right, good luck, my friend.
Thank you. Take care.
Am I in break here, Shane? Do I need to go to break? Okay, I got to go to break. 540-580. Welcome back. I was going to enjoy the weather this afternoon, but I'm not sure it's going to take a turn for the worse, according to the weather as read by Shane. Could be a good job for you. Could be a weatherman. Yeah, you thinking about it? Yeah, you're going to have to slick your hair back a little bit more. Maybe poof it up, do the whole. Yeah, you have to work that out. 540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions here. Mike, you're on WHP 580.
Yes, good afternoon, Carl.
Hey,
I got a good question. It's pertaining to the census.
Okay, shoot.
Go ahead,
shoot.
Okay. Why do they have to ask us all 10 of those questions? One of the questions in particular is, do you own your own house? What does that have to do with the census on being counted?
Well, if you go on weekendappointment.com, you see we have quite a thread built up on the census there. I've got some of the census law, and we've got a lot of commentary from folks on it. And you'd be surprised how many people were hitting it out of Google. I could see on the thing because the census is always a hot topic. The short answer is there's supposed to be an enumeration of the people. That's all the Constitution says. Congress is going on to say, hey, we want additional questions answered because we want to learn a little bit about our citizenry. And there's an argument that doing that allows the federal government to see where they're actually headed with certain policies, how to allocate funds and the like. So the big argument is whether or not, and this goes back to how much information should government have. And the reality of it is, if government really wanted good information on its people, instead of taking the census, they should probably just buy it from one of the information merchants out there who already keeps a lot more data on us than the census has.
Yeah.
So I think the whole problem could be solved if the government just went back to counting people and just bought this rest of this info from everybody who already knows all about you.
Yeah. Well, that's true, too. But I still haven't sent mine in because I couldn't get a clear answer on, do I actually have to answer that question?
Well, go to weekendappointment.com, read the law. It says you have to answer the questions or else you're technically in trouble, but we can't find anybody who's ever gotten in trouble for it. So
yeah.
It's that. Remember I told you at the beginning of the show, if you didn't hear me, I was telling a caller about the difference between being illegal and actually being illegal, and one is it enforced?
Yeah.
And my understanding is there's not too many people who have ever gotten in trouble for not answering the census. So maybe it's not illegal in the sense that nothing's going to happen to you. It's like driving 70 and a 65.
Yes.
But I have to encourage you to obey the law and send it in, all right?
Yes, I'll send it in.
All right, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Let's see who's next here. Joseph, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Joseph.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joseph Abraham, and thank you for the great service.
Thank you.
And now my question.
Yes.
The insurance company that we enrolled and paid the premium, they got bankrupt, and since they are listed or reside in Tennessee, the state commissioner or some kind of a state agency took their business.
Yes.
And at this point, they are not paying anything, and the judge of some kind of a court would decide in about a month what's going on about their assets, their liabilities, and so and so. And my question is, right now, few health providers that we appreciate their service and we want them to get paid, few of them are getting to us and say, we try to collect the money, these people do not pay. And my question is, who owes to whom?
Well, and that's the question, and I don't know the answer to. I think you actually posted this on Weekend Appointment. What my answer was I would first check with the Pennsylvania Insurance Commissioner.
I did. They don't want to do anything with that because they are not licensed in this state.
Okay. So the next question is then who's handling the default? And so there would be a contract that you signed with the insurance company, and there would be a contract that the provider probably signed with the insurance company. And those contracts will control over who's responsible.
Okay, but generally speaking, you cannot tell me, yes, Joseph, you have to pay.
Generally speaking, I suspect at the end of the day you're responsible if your insurance company defaults because they're there to indemnify you, and you pay them a premium. But when your indemnifier goes bankrupt, that doesn't mean that your debt's forgiven. However, a lot of providers enter into contracts with the insurance company to accept a reimbursement rate on the amount that's lower. So I would suspect that you might only be responsible for the allowable amount that the insurance company should have paid, not what the actual face value of the bill is. But I don't know the answer to that.
So should I ask the providers to give me some kind of statement?
I'd ask the provider, I'd say, listen, let's do it this way. Show me how much you would have actually been paid by the insurance company. Maybe I can pay you that, and then if there's double reimbursement later, you pay me back. But it depends on how you feel with the provider.
Well, I think that they should get paid.
Yeah, and that's the moral answer.
Yeah. I appreciate so much your great show and great help. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's a complex area, but my thought on the matter is usually if an insurance company goes bankrupt, there's going to be a state agency that usually has a fund, like here in Pennsylvania, it's the PIGA fund, that takes over. And boy, if you ever see that's in play, you're in big trouble because it takes them forever to consolidate everything and pay the claims, and sometimes at a reduced rate. I had been involved in a piece of litigation one time where the insurance company went bankrupt. And actually, I settled a case with some car maker called GE, or no, it was a GM. I'm sorry, GM. Remember the Government Motors back when they were still General Motors. And I remember chuckling, saying, you wouldn't expect those guys to go bankrupt. But we did get a bankruptcy notice from them on the litigation, but of course we'd already gotten our money and we were out of the look-back period. So, Jeff, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hey, Carl, how are you doing today? Good. Hey, I have a question about an incident that would have occurred at a school.
Yeah.
Okay, my son, he's 13, and another boy who's 13. Didn't really get into an altercation, but the other boy, my son was looking down, cleaning his glasses, and as he looked up, he said the other boy almost looked like he was throwing a dart at him. Right. And a pencil went in his eye. Oh. My son has very bad vision in one eye already, and now this altered at the initial examination. A piece of lead had to be removed, and his vision was altered. Mm-hmm. Should I wait to go back to his follow-up in a few weeks to see if his vision's still altered, to see if there's anything I can do to pursue this?
Well, the short answer is I don't think you have to wait that long. However, you're right. Your measure of damage, if there's a liable party, the measure of damage is going to be based on the permanency of the injury. Jeff, I'd be happy to, if you post something up here on Weekend Appointment, be happy to get you a better answer, my friend, because the music means I got to go. All right, folks, I'll see you next week. In the meantime, make sure you go claim that free will at weekendappointment.com. I'm still writing them. People are still coming in and seeing me. And if you haven't gotten the free will or the medical, the living will that we do as well, that's not free, but it's a reduced rate. Go to weekendappointment.com, sign up for that free will.